We have got a quorum, and it's already the appointed time. Thank you for coming to the Public Works Subcommittee's meeting this morning. During the 2013-14 electrical session, as at the last meeting, we have already scrutinized 7 items involving total funding of $33.6797 billion. With regard to capital works projects, the funding amounted to $29.9288 billion, together with the outstanding item that has not been completed for scrutiny on the 22nd of January. We have a total of 2 papers for discussion today. One is to upgrade a project to Cat A, and the remaining one is to approve or increase the approved funding for a Cat A project involving a total of $386 million. If all the proposals are approved by members, then the total number of projects being approved would amount to 9, involving a total funding of $34.657 billion. And for projects relating to works, the amount was at $33.148 billion. And I'd like to remind members that if there is any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in the discussion items today, please disclose your interest in accordance to Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure. And for any direct pecuniary interest, please also make a decision before you speak under Rule 84. First item, PWSC 2013-14-35. That's the reprovisioning of Shanghai. That's the reprovisioning of Shanghai Street refuse collection point and street sleeper services unit to the site at Hau Cheung Street, Yau Ma Tei, for the Phase 2 development of the Yau Ma Tei Theatre project. And members are invited to recommend to the FC the upgrading of to Cat A at an estimated cost of $165.3 million in money of the day prices, and that's for the reprovisioning of the Shanghai Street RCP and SSSU to the site of Hau Cheung Street in order to proceed to Phase 2 development of the Yau Ma Tei Theatre project. As we have not been able to complete our discussion during our last meeting, we have now continued our discussion today. With us today, Mr. Yang Tek-Kang, Deputy Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, Mr. Chen Chi-Ming, Deputy Secretary for Development, Mr. Thomas Chow, Permanent Secretary for Development, Planning and Lands, Mr. Che Chin-Wen, Deputy Director from the EPD, Ms. Jasmine Choi, Principal Assistant Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. To answer members' questions on the item, we have Mrs. Avia Lai, Deputy Secretary from the Home Affairs Bureau, Ms. Wong Yut-Hua, Principal Assistant Secretary, Culture, Home Affairs Bureau, Mr. Leung Kun Ki, Director of Architectural Services, Mrs. Alice Yu, Project Director from the ASD, Mr. Fong Man Chung, Assistant Director, Family and Child Welfare, SWD, Mr. Fan Yong Kai, Assistant Director, Operations from the FEHD, and Ms. Winsome Chow, Assistant Director, Performing Arts from the LCSD. At the last meeting, 4 members have already spoken in the first round, including Tony Chair, Ma Fong Kwok, Fernando Cheung, and Helena Wong. And for those who have yet to speak, there are 5. Ms. Emily Lau, Wu Chi Wai, Sid Ho, Frankie Yik, and Chen Yin Han. They have all requested to speak. So, for the others who would like to speak, please press the button to request to speak. And first of all, I'll invite those who have not yet spoken in the first round before I invite others to speak in the second round. First, Emily Lau. Thank you, Chairman. Sorry. For the first round, 4 minutes each. Chairman, this is a highly controversial item. We understand that for the Cantonese opera Association, they'd like to resolve this as soon as possible because they'd like to develop the opera house or the theater as soon as possible. And we have no qualms about that, as Ms. Helena Wong explained last time. But then, why do they have to put the RCP and the SSSU together? On many occasions, Chairman, actually we have already pointed that out, and the administration should have the ability to deal with that in a better manner, so that yes, you can relocate the facilities, but then you should not be giving people an impression that you're actually slighting the street sleepers as if they were refuse. This is totally unacceptable. We have already made that point last time, and I believe that officials have already responded to that. But are there any other options available? For example, some suggested that why don't we build a few stories taller on top of the theater so that we can accommodate the street sleepers. So is there a way for us to segregate the two so that they will be able to live with dignity? Who would like to respond? Yes, first. Yes, thank you, Chairman. We've been to the Home Affairs panel on 2 occasions, listening to members' views. With regard to members' comments, that is on the premise that the project would not be delayed. We have already tried our best to respond to members' comments. For example, with regard to the latest design for the SSSU and the RCP's entrance, they are already put at the farthest end, and also for the entrance to the RCP is going to be designed in such a way that is not easily seen, and there are also some flower planters so that from Hau Cheung Street you will not be able to see the entrance at all. And also for the ventilation point for the RCP, that would be very far away from the windows of the SSSU, and also at the for the story of the SSSU, the platforms on both ends will also be widened, and there will also be a lot of greening and landscaping in order to improve air quality and also the ambient environment. And in December, when we went to the panel, again, we also heard some members suggest that with regard to the SSSU's entrance, it should be open in the northern side, and therefore in the design, this time we have already reserved that as a possibility, and therefore for the entrance after that has been resolved, we will also be implementing or realizing this suggestion. So we have already responded to the points made by members, and we have tried our best to incorporate those comments in our design. As regards whether or not it's possible to relocate the SSSU in phase 2 of the Yau Ma Tei Theatre project. In fact, back in earlier on, we also went back to the panel to report on the pros and cons of the 3 options. We also explained that with regard to the phase 2 site, is a very small site, it's very elongated, so it's a very small site with only 500 square meters. And if we were to put another story on top of that, then we will have to have additional staircases and also lobby and so on. And that would take up a lot of space of the phase 2 project. Initially, we would like to expand the backstage and also the front lobby of the Yau Ma Tei Theatre, and that would also be affected if we were to put an additional story on top of that, and that's not feasible. That's why both in the paper and also at the panel meeting, we already explained to members about that. Well, I think our views are very simple. That is that you should not be co-locating the RCP and the SSSU. This is a very fundamental point. And do you accept the fact that this is inappropriate? And if you accept that, then you should have been able to identify alternative options. So apparently what you said was apparently that it's okay so long as the entrances are far apart from each other is okay. This is totally unacceptable. Yes, Wu Chi-wei, 4 minutes including both questions and answers. Thank you, Chairman. The government representative just now said that she had taken on board our views, and she would try to open the entrance in the northern side of the site. But then looking at the plan, I do not quite see that. And also there has been a lot of discussion on that. Since the very first time, we already made that point to you, and we've been told that it would not be feasible. So at the time of approval, how can we convince that with regard to the northern opening, that would be done and is feasible? Or is it that after the approval is given, then nothing will come about it? So are you aware of this? That is, even if you really intend to do it, that would also involve some land disposal issue. But then from the paper, we do not see how you're going to deal with that. That is for the wholesale fruit market is now on a temporary site. So how are you going to deal with that? So apparently you're just trying to meet some of the concerns of members, and then you would be prepared to say those words in order to ensure that the project will be approved today. All right, they are trying to segregate the entrances of the two facilities, that is the RCP entrance and also the entrance to the SSSU. You're trying to segregate the two as far as possible. So you're saying that you're going to reserve an area at the northern end so that there will be an entrance to the SSSU. So when can that be done? Can you tell us more about that? Well, in the paper, para 21, that we have submitted to members, we have already explained to members that we have that intention. We have also said that in December last year, when we went to the panel, we also took on board their views, and that's why in the paper that we have submitted this time, if you look at the layout plan, we have already set aside that as a possibility. And in para 21, we also explained that to members. So with regard to the front, that is, if the entrance is going to be located in the northern part, you have to have an access to the entrance. And with regard to that part of the site, in the future, if we can set that out, then who would be responsible for managing that, and who is to ensure that it's going to be obstruction free, so that there would not be miscellaneous items placed at the entrance and so on. So we will have to liaise with the relevant departments before we can work out the details. Chairman, point taken. So it shows that the administration might have taken on board our views, but then according to our understanding, that site also belongs to the government. So I do not understand why, when you come to the PWSC for funding, you are still telling us that, well, we have to see whether or not we can get the access right. What if you do not get the access right? Does that mean that the funding will become void? Or is it that after the approval is given, even if you do not get the access right in the end, it will still press ahead with this? All right, they have an entrance, and as far as possible, they are trying to make sure that it's farthest away from the SSSU, but then they are trying to improve that further so that they can have a northern entrance. So can you explain why you are not able to ensure that the opening will be in the northern side? Because there is a short-term tendency for the wholesale fruit market for temporary storage, and the lands department will also have to talk to the current stakeholders and negotiate with them as to how the site is going to be used in the future, so that the site can be segregated again. But then one practical issue is that we also need to get a department to manage that facility, because with an access there, then one organization will have to be responsible for managing it. So all these issues will have to be sorted out.
Well, Ms. Sito is not here yet, so Mr. Yik Chi Ming was on the line last time. Let us ask Ms. Chen Yunhan to ask questions first. We have been discussing this for many times, and it seems to people now that the electrical is in the way of arts development. Well, we are not doing that. We just want the government to listen to us about this particular point. It's not that the government hasn't made any changes. It has already made some fundamental changes. I've heard that you don't have enough resources. Now, can you come up with another design. That is, there should be 2 separate buildings there, because we don't want people to have the feeling that street sleepers are put together with raffles. Well, if there is an obstacle, then it's not us, it's the government, because you have not listened to us carefully. We asked you to look for 2 sites. The government said that it's very difficult. So the government told us that in terms of design, there would be 2 blocks, but it's not the case now. Yes, I understand that some modifications have been made, but now people are living upstairs while the refuse collection point is downstairs. Now, if the government refuses to make further changes, I don't think this is viable. Actually, it's very simple. Is it because of money that's why you cannot build 2 separate blocks? And it is not a time issue, because this is not the first time that we talked about this. We have talked about this many, many times. As for separating the 2 facilities into 2 blocks, actually in the December panel meeting, we already told members the results of our study. The major consideration is not cost. Now, if we separate the sites into 2 independent buildings or standalone buildings, then each building would need to have its escape means of escape and means of access, etc. So it will take up much more space. And the 2 blocks would have to be very close to each other. And we will have to do the design again, and all the facilities would have to be rearranged for. The means of escape and means of access would have to be redesigned. So all the approval procedures would have to start anew. So our estimation is that we will need another 18 months to do all this, and this is a significant delay. When we talked to the district council, they hoped that the project can be begin as soon as possible. Now, because if there are 2 stand-alone buildings, then actually they would be sticking to each other. The distance between them would be extremely close, and the users would not benefit. So that's why we think this is not the best solution. I think the government thinks totally differently from us. When you talk about 18 months, and I heard you talk about 18 months, it reminds me of the outer trade. Well, you came to us very early. We have told you our views many times. We asked you to build 2 blocks on the same site. Actually, we have already made concessions. Now, don't tell us that you have listened to our views. So, men and rebels should not be put together. It's unfair to the street sleepers, and logically, it's not ideal. Next, Mr. Michael Tian. Chairman, last time I didn't say anything. I was listening very carefully to members' views and questions. And then I went home and thought for a long while. And now it seems to me that there are 2 major concerns. The first concern is, now you have the latest design, so it's this better than the previous situation. And in the future, would the situation or the condition really be inhumane? I think when you talk about being inhumane, is a relative issue. There are no objective indicators. There are many RCPs across the territory. Now we're talking about 2 entrances, and there is 1 non-residential story between the dormitory and the RCP. So in other places of Hong Kong, do we have a similar design? That is a non-residential story which separates the RCP underneath and the residential units above. I think we really have to be more objective. Now, the government has answered our first question today. Now, for the new RCP, you say that its facilities will be much better than the old Shanghai Street RCP, and there will be a better ventilation system, etc. So it will be better off, right? And please focus on my second question. Are there other similar facilities in Hong Kong? If not, then this is indeed pretty inhumane. Deputy Secretary, as for the information I have in hand, in Hong Kong, now the department responsible for RCP is FEHD, and they have 8 similar buildings like this. For example, at Tai Wai Kam-hei Garden in Siu Lik Yuen, another residential building. And underneath, there is an RCP and above the residential units. As for the exhaust air ducts, it's just 6 meters from the residential flats. And now our distance is 9.6 to 21.4 meters. So is there a non-residential story in between? Well, above that, those RCPs, there are high-rise residential buildings. Have complaints been received? I haven't heard about that. You haven't heard about that. How about the district councillors there? I haven't heard this from the district councillors there. Absolutely no. Well, this is the information I got about RCPs and residential buildings above. So there are 3 places like this. Well, they are ordinary residential buildings. So you mean private buildings? Are they public residential buildings or private buildings? Yes, I've asked my question. Next, Ms. Sit Ho. This is the first time you ask questions. 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Now, no matter whether we are directly elected or not, have you heard about this situation in public rental housing estates? For the units that are next to RCPs, nobody would ever choose them. Well, if you say that there have been no complaints, I think you are just inviting complaints. Now, for street sleepers and RCPs, in the past they were placed together, and actually that's far from ideal. And now we are redeveloping the Yau Ma Tei Theatre, and a new SSSU will be built. But the government has not changed its mindset. It's never thought about making a change. Street sleepers are still put together with an RCP. So it reflects that the government has always looked down on poor people. You never has the intention to improve their living condition. Well, the street sleepers will just go to the shelters at night, and actually a lot of street sleepers would not like to go to such as use, because there are a lot of limitations. For example, you have to go to it at a certain time. There are time restrictions. So if you want to help the street sleepers, you should rely more on social workers. Try to understand more about these street sleepers. Maybe they have psychological problems. Now you're asking us to fund this project. Other than the hardware itself, you have never told us why there are street sleepers. Well, some of the street sleepers have homes. They have families. In some of them, their families are living in public housing estates. And why are they sleeping on the streets? Have you tried to find out why? But the government has never tried to solve this people problem. And if you think if the environment is that obnoxious and no street sleeper will go there, then would be best. Now there is an opportunity for you to make improvements, and you are not doing anything. So I'll cast a vote against your application. I just provided some information. Hong Kong is very small and we have a high population. So if underneath there is an RCP and above there are residential units, well, actually we see this kind of arrangements everywhere. So in the course of planning, we just adopt our normal practice. We didn't do this intentionally. I think in Zhangguanou, they at the Lohas, the new residential developments there, if you make such an arrangement there, the residents will protest seriously. Okay, for the first round of questions, I think all members have asked their first round questions. Now is second round. Fernando Chang, Ma Feng Kwok, Elena Wong, and Wu Chi Wai. 3 minutes each. Dr. Fernando Chang. Thank you, Chairman. We were told that, well, you can see this everywhere. That is, for Hong Kong people, they are very used to living above RCPs. I think this will become an international joke. Yes, Hong Kong is a very densely populated city, but do we really want to see this? Do we want to see people living above RCP everywhere? Do you have a conscience? Well, how many of you live above an RCP? Please declare your interest. I think this is really too much. Well, these are places for people to live in. And for an RCP, I don't know how many tons of refuse will be collected each day, and it's a damn place. Last time we already talked about this. In those places, there will be a serious flea problem, and we have seen these problems at least at 2 SSUs. Now, to the south of this site, there is a highway department storage area, and then there is a temporary car park which is of a large scale, and to the north there is a wholesale fruit market storage area which is on a short-term tenancy. So for the highway department's material storage area, must it be put there? Can it be relocated? It's only a temporary storage area. Actually, around this site there are a few pieces of land. Why can't these land be used? Deputy Secretary? Now we have asked the Highways Department to reassess the land uses in this area. Is there another suitable site for them? Well, the Lands Department told us that there are no other suitable sites. And last August, well, can you focus on these few sites? Well, because I'm not representing the Lands Department. Well, please let the Deputy Secretary answer first, because I'm not from the Lands Department. I'm not as professional as they are. So I would like to relay to you the Lands Department's answer. In August last year, well, please do not waste my time. I've asked a very specific questions. Please give me a concrete answer. Well, last August, we went to the district council meeting. I think you're wasting my time. I asked a very clear question, and she's telling me about the whole area. Well, I'm just asking about these few sites. Tell me the reasons. Well, your time is up, and I think the Deputy Secretary has already answered your question, but you're just not happy with her answer. Mr. Albert Chen, well, I think we are really in a dilemma. And no matter whether we support it or oppose it, the government's planning has already shown its mindset. I think we really have to put this down in record and reprimand the government, in particular the attitude of the government official just now. Now, an RCP is put underneath residential units, and we were told that this is very common in Hong Kong. I think this is a humiliation to Hong Kong people.
All right, if it's 20, 30 years ago, because of various factors, this might not have been the consideration. All right, this is a historical legacy, but then if you look at the former Municipal Services Department's era, all right, in the RCUC era, they would have to make sure that all RCPs would be located in standalone buildings, and they would try to make it look nice. So that for the ventilation system, they would also use filtering systems in order to reduce or minimize the odor. And now it's 2014, and yet you are designing this RCP and is now located in the same building as the SSSU. So it shows that you have this very rigid bureaucratic mindset. So apparently you're just doing your job, and that's it. All right, we have a shortage of land, and therefore all the facilities will be co-located in one building. This is ridiculous. You have never thought about it. Just imagine allowing yourself to live upstairs of an RCP, because it's not just about refuse. You also have dead carcasses of dogs and cats and so on. So this is really the mindset of the officials. This is bureaucratic. You could have separated the two facilities, all right. If you have difficulty identifying a site for the RCP, then the SSSU can be relocated elsewhere, all right. Many members might be forced to accept this paper today because for the other projects, for whatever reason, we have to press ahead with them as soon as possible. But then in terms of your planning and also your bureaucratic attitude, you have totally ignored the planning needs. I don't think the planning guidelines or the town planning guidelines would find these acceptable. Yes, we may not be able to reject this paper successfully, but then given the response to this, and also it shows your attitude to the public and also your disrespect for the users of the facilities, you have never considered their daily needs. I find it most enraging. I'd like to put it on record. All right, there is no need for you to respond. All right, in the second round, we have Ma Fong Kwok. 3 minutes, including both questions and answers. Sorry, I was in a hurry because I have to attend another Bills Committee meeting. That's why I will be brief. Well, I am also in a dilemma with regard to this paper in terms of planning and design of the project. Well, in the past, yes, there were many RCPs that were very close to residential developments, including the housing estate that I live in. Well, the RCP is also very close to residential units. But then if you look at the horizontal distance, is relatively wide. So we should try as far as possible not to collocate the facilities close to each other. But then according to the administration, for one reason or another, they have not been able to segregate the two. This is not desirable. And also, as I said at the last meeting and even at the panel meeting, I also said that you should have lengthened the horizontal distance, but then according to the administration, that again is not feasible. So if you look at the facilities now, if you look at the bad odor, yes, when compared to 10, 20 years ago, there is a significant improvement. But then the fact that you're placing the two together politically is not desirable. That's why we have had this huge controversy surrounding the issue. And according to my constituents, they have expressed very strong views to me, saying that they'd like to press ahead with the project as soon as possible. That's why I said I was in a difficult position. So what I'd like to say to the administration is, even if this is approved today, please do not just sit there and do nothing. Please try your best to widen the gap between the two horizontally and vertically. Can you also provide further ventilation system so that the odor from the RCP can be diluted as soon as possible, and they should not be close to the facility. All right, can the administration respond to this? can they do that? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Member, for your view. If this project is approved, we will talk to the departments again to see if further measures can be taken to further improve it. Thank you. All right. Anne Chiang speaking for the first time. So 4 minutes, including both questions and answers. Thank you, Chairman. When I heard that the RCP and the SSSU are going to be located in the same place, well, I found it problematic because, after all, you're talking about people who have to live there. That's why I tried to find out more about this on the ground. And I noticed that for the SSSU and the RCP at present, they are located in the same place. That's the current situation. And the current situation is most undesirable. The environment is appalling because it's been there for many years. And you can also see that all the facilities are very run down. I've also interviewed some street sleepers, and they agree fully that we should build a new building as soon as possible so they can move in. But then when I told them that what if the RCP is again located there, well, they say that anything would be better than what it is now. And we are also aware of the fact that the current operator has already indicated his support for the administration's package. Indeed, the operator would also like to see the new SSSU being commissioned and opened. Yes, if the two can be separated so that you can have a separate site for the SSSU, well, if you're able to do that, then of course it's good. But before you're able to do that, if you do not relocate it, if you do not change it at all, for how many more years do we have to wait? As we all know, if we do not approve the funding proposal today, then we will have to wait for another few years. So are we saying that you're willing to see this continue so that the street sleepers will have to stay in the current environment, which is appalling, for another few years? And if there are people who are against the government's proposal today, then I think these people are just doing this for their own political ends. They are just trying to get political mileage for their own good. They are not really doing this for the benefit of the street sleepers. They are not here to serve the interests of the street sleepers. That's why I support the proposal today. Thank you. Speaking in the second round, we have Helena Wong. Thank you, Chairman. I think Anne Chiang is ridiculous. She doesn't know what she is saying. If you try to consult the street sleepers from the scientific perspective, you should have given them all the choices. Would you? So you should have asked them, do you want to improve your current living environment? All right, is very clear. But then all you did was you just asked them if you like the SSSP to stay where it is now. Would you like to be together with the RCP? So if you just ask them leading questions and put selective questions to them, then you're not being fair to them, because you're putting them you're putting them in a difficult position. You're actually cornering them. So apparently you're telling them that you have no choice and you have to stay with the RCP. You're not giving them a genuine choice. If you really respect them, if you really want to consult the stakeholders by going to the site. So what I find to be most enraging is that when people pretend to be very scientific and objective, and yet you're asking them questions that they have no choice. It's a Hobson's choice. So what if it's delayed for another few years? So if you do not support that, are you actually trying to win political mileage? How many street sleepers will be voting for me? All right, Anne Chiang, in Yau Ma Tei and Yau Chim District Council, you have dominated the District Council. You hate them most because you're not allowing them to stay beneath the flyovers, and here you're asking them to stay at the RCP. So why don't you explain your position and stance? All right, time has been delayed for a long time. We don't want to see any further delays. But then let's not forget that there is an old saying, which is very true. That is, well, if you have to suffer in the long term, then you might as well suffer in the short term. So why do they have to stay with the RCP for more time, for any longer? Yes, we all agree that for RCPs and SSSUs, they should not be co-located in the same place. And yet the administration has not been able to convince us why do the street sleepers have to move together with the RCP. Why is it that in the ancillary facility for Yau Ma Tei and also the new Cantonese Opera House, why can they not be co-located with the SSSU? You said that it's a technical issue. You should have been able to deal with it technically. But for so long, I've heard from the administration, you have not been able to come up with a satisfactory answer why you are not able to resolve the technical difficulty of co-locating the SSSU and the Yau Ma Tei Theatre, why they cannot be co-located in the same place. Chairman, the DP will not support this proposal as it stands. Thank you. All right, time's up. Frankie Yik speaking for the first time. Thank you, Chairman. On this particular incident, our caucus, our group has discussed this, but then we have not been able to identify a new site to relocate that. Then we will consider supporting this. But then we also support what Tony Chair said last time. And I understand that the administration has also considered what we said, whether or not you can reorient the entrance by moving it and slanting it some 90 degrees to another angle, and also whether or not you can widen the gap between the windows of the SSSU and the entrance to the RCP. Please do consider that seriously. If there is no alternative site available, then if that can be done, I'm sure the Works Bureau people can help. And if they are willing to work on it, then there should not be any further. There would not be too much delay resulting from that modification. Yes, with regard to the entrance of the SSSU, to have an entrance at the northern end. All right, in the paper that we have submitted to members, we have already set that out in the paragraph that I referred to just now, and therefore in the layout plan we have already done that. With regard to adding 2 or 3 floors or stories to the building, as we have explained to members. All right, adding 2 or 3 stories is not just about adding 2 or 3 stories horizontally. It's not as simple as that. Actually, if you look at the planning process, we will have to start it all over again. For example, members also suggested that whether or not we can add 2 stories to the building so that we can have more storage. All right, in doing that, we will have to consult the departments concerned. What do you want to store there and how much space do you need? And if that's the case, do we have to install additional goods lifts, and also for the fire safety equipment and facilities, they will also have to design accordingly. And also we will also have to go through the process again, so that all the departments will have to be consulted and their approval and consent has to be obtained. But then given the fact that this is a very pressing project, there will be some delays inevitably if we were to go down that track. And that's why we have now modified the layout, and we hope that we can get your support. Frankie Yik. In para 13, I noticed that there is a change in the information. You said that with regard to the Hau Cheung Street site, there is no specified building height restrictions and also the plot ratio, so there is some flexibility here. So it's just a matter of time consideration. So this is something that you should consider. So this is what we think. All right, Ip Kok Him, you're speaking for the first time too, so 4 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. Concerning the co-location of the RCP and the SSSU in the same site, yes, I've heard some members say that to locate the SSSU right above the RCP is like treating them as if they were rubbish. I don't think that's the right description and approach. And for the DAB, you are apparently suggesting that district councillors from the DAB hate street sleepers most. I think this cannot be farther from the truth. For any disadvantaged group, I'm sure all members here would try to fight for their benefits and well-being. We also are concerned about their plight, and I personally in the past have particularly done a lot for the street sleepers in the Western District. Of course, the best thing for them is to find a home for them, but whether or not they'll be able to go into SSSUs, that depends on their personal circumstances and their own considerations.
But I think you are smearing our name. I really regret that. Now, if we want to have a good place for the street sleepers to receive service or take shelter, I think that is something good, and we support that. At the Home Affairs panel, we have discussed this in great details. And at the end of the day, we think this is a suitable location. We also have to respect the district councils. Now, for the members here, how many of you have been so involved in local affairs? And we want to improve the living condition of the street sleepers, and also we have talked about the separation of the two entrances, etc. Yes, the government has to take this into consideration. And some members also suggested that if the dormitory can be separated by 1 or 2 stories from the LCP, well, I think that is a very good arrangement. I don't think the government should be so rigid by telling us that it's very difficult or troublesome to do so. If this is a project to improve the living environment of street sleepers, I will support that. But if you say that by placing street sleepers atop an LCP is a discrimination against them, I don't agree to that. Even in luxury apartment areas, we can also see this kind of arrangement. So you can't just point a finger at us saying that we are not good to the vulnerables. We support this application for funding. However, I hope the government can take on board more of our views. Maybe you can really indeed the number of floors. I believe most members hope that the environment can be improved. We are working towards this direction. I hope the government would also do that. We really want this problem to be resolved as soon as possible. Wu Chi-wei, second round. Well, the Deputy Secretary said a number of times that at the last Home Affairs panel's meeting, we discussed about improvement measures. And for all these improvement measures, you will have to consult different government departments again. You will have to go through a lot of procedures. I think this is really absurd, because we didn't just tell you our opinions today. We have talked about them a long time ago. Now you are the government. And now on top of an LCP, if you want to build 2 or more stories for storage purpose, then you can just ask FEHG, because they need a lot of space for storing their refuse bins. So you don't have to ask all the government departments. And about the entrance in the north, and you say that you need some a certain department to take care of that the area in front of the northern entrance. Well, I think the Highways Department will be responsible for that. You don't have to ask around. So while we are discussing this issue and you tell us that there is this obstacle, that obstacle, you would make me feel that you are just full of excuses. And now you are telling us that if all these problems cannot be resolved, then the projects may not be implemented. Yes, I understand that there are obnoxious facilities in Hong Kong, and they have to be placed close to residential areas or directly underneath. But how many of these obnoxious facilities will have an entrance that is in the same direction or facing the same direction as the entrance of a residential building? You cannot say that this is unavoidable in Hong Kong. I think you just have not made effort to minimize the nuisance. Now, at Sampo Kong Plaza, they have an RCP underneath, but it is separated by a podium, and also the two entrances are totally separated. Now, only by doing so can we have this kind of collocation of obnoxious facilities and residential buildings. I think you need to make more improvement before you come here for funding application. Ms. An Chang. Ms. Helena Wong lives in space. She just lies and talks empty all the time. Well, please focus on this issue. Chairman, if this project is rejected, then you have to find a new site. Then it will take several years. And at the moment, the temporary shelter for street sleepers is in a very poor condition. And now there is an opportunity for them to move to a better environment. So I think this is a good option. Now, some people will think that they don't have a choice. No, that's not the case. In Kowloon West, there are also several temporary shelters for street sleepers. It's not that they don't have a choice. In Sham Shui Po, there is one, and the occupancy rate is about 70% or so. So for this place, now this actually is in a very good environment, and now the government has also made changes to the entrances so that they are placed as far away as possible. Well, you are asking that they should build 2 blocks. Actually, they are still very close together, even if there are 2 blocks. I think this is indeed a very beautiful design, and even for some people living in private buildings, they may not have a better environment. And the RCP is on the ground. The dormitory is at the top floor, and in between there are some offices and storage areas. And for the street sleepers, they would just come to the dormitories to sleep for a few hours at night. How can you call this inhumane? Well, don't give Hong Kong this inhumane reputation. We are a very humane society. So, Chairman, I would like to reiterate, now we should do this for the street sleepers. They should have new homes as soon as possible. Please support this application. Well, An Chang was saying that Helena Wong lied. I think this is offensive. Now, I'm asking for a ruling. Just now, An Chang said that Helena Wong lied. This is offensive. Please make a ruling. My ruling is that we should continue the meeting. Third round. Fernando Zhang, Helena Wong. Who else? Because we still have to handle another item today. No? Great, then let us stick to this schedule. Fernando Zhang. Hau Cheung was full of scrap. Well, you're saying that our CP is so good, why don't you move to a place that's right above an LCP? Please focus on the topic. Fernando Zhang, what are you talking about? You're rubbish. You yourself are rubbish. We are discussing this issue. Please focus on this. Well, Chairman, please give me my time back because I was interrupted. Well, please do not allow her to continue to do this. Please do not shout from your seat. This is Dr. Fernando Zhang's turn to speak. My ruling is that we should continue. Dr. Fernando Zhang. Ms. Hau Cheung, please stop shouting from your seat without my permission, and it is not your term. And now there is a highway department storage area to the south of the site. To the north, there is a wholesale fruits market storage area. And to the south of the highway department's materials storage area, there is a huge site. I think this huge site is dozens of times bigger than the selected site. So why can't those sites be used for the construction of the SSSU? The Lands Department has reviewed the land uses of this site already, and it has decided that those sites cannot be used for this purpose. Can you give me the reasons? Don't just tell me no. Give me the reasons. Any further explanation? No. The Highways Department's site will be used for some construction works very soon. How about the other two sites? Dr. Fernando Zhang wants you to give us more information on those two sites. As for the wholesale fruit market storage area, it is a place for storing goods, so it's being used. I asked you why. Well, it's on short-term tenancy. When will that tenancy end? As for land use, this does not fall under the Home Affairs Bureau. Well, it has already consulted other departments. Even though you are not happy with her answer, that is the answer. Ms. Helena Wong. Well, Chairman, I regret that Hau Cheung said such things. She said that I lied and I just make empty talks. And what did I lie about? What's against the truth? Well, Ms. Wong, I hope that you can focus on this topic. Chairman, as a chairman, you shouldn't make rulings like that. You are allowing members to attack each other. Okay, now is my time to speak. Well, can the Home Affairs Bureau explain why the Phase 2 developments of the Yau Ma Tei Theatre be co-located with the SSSU? Well, if you want an answer from them, maybe they will repeat the same answer as in the last meeting. Well, when I answered the question, this member was not here, so I will answer again. Now, for the Phase 2 development site, it has an area of 500 square meters only, and it's an elongated site. So if you want to build a SSSU on it, we need to build elevators, and there should be extra means of access, and lobbies would have to be built because there are elevators, etc. So because we now want to expand the backstage of the YMTT, so that cannot be done. How about building it at the basement? Well, you need an entrance, even if it's a basement. Then you can build a staircase. All the facilities would have to be built. Well, you have such a site and you can't even build a staircase? Because now you are not giving us a counter proposal which can address the concerns of members. Okay, time's up. Last, Ann Chiang, third round.
2 minutes, please. Chairman, when I spoke for the first time, I did not quote any member's remarks. I did not name any name. I referred to Helena Wong because she was the first one to name me. And Helena Wong, when she named me and Chiang, she added this, and it's totally unacceptable. And that's why I was forced to make the earlier remarks, and what she said was also far from being true. Well, Ann Chiang, please speak on the subject, and if you have any questions for the officials, then they'll address your points. So, please. Well, my question for the official is, in the event that this project cannot be approved, then what happens to the existing SSSU? If it has to be relocated again, if it has to move to another place, then how much time will be needed? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Because originally we also asked the Lands Department to look at all the sites within the district, and they also confirmed that there's no other site which is suitable available in the district, and therefore if we were to consider another site, then we do not have a target date as to when that can be done. All right? There is no alternative site available. If there are no further questions, then I'll put this to the vote. Will those in favor please raise their hands? All right, the bell will ring for 5 minutes.
現在開始表決。
Please proceed to vote. First, please press the button to indicate your presence, and then cast your votes. Before I declare the voting result, please verify your votes.
好，現在停止。
Voting is closed, and the result is shown. "27 present, 11 for, 14 against, 1 abstention." So I declare the project rejected.
好，跟住下一個項目係
Next, Head 708, Capital Subventions and Major Systems and Equipment. Can we invite the government representatives to join us?
《文件呢係 PWSC 括弧2013至14嘅
Paper number PWSC bracket 2013-14-34, redevelopment of Yinghua Girls' School at Robinson Road, Hong Kong, so 94 EB. This paper proposes that the approved funding for 94 EB be increased by $220.7 million from $432.7 million to $653.4 million in money of the day prices in order to cater for the site costs and also the additional costs that have arisen since the time when it was approved. The Education panel was consulted on this, and they supported the proposal, and the relevant views have been submitted at the meeting of the panel held on the 9th of December. With us today to answer members' questions, we have Mr. Yang Yun Hong, or Kevin Young, Undersecretary for Education, and Ms. Wendy Chong, Principal Assistant Secretary, Infrastructure and Research Support from the Bureau, Mr. Lang Kam-pui, Chief Technical Advisor, Subvented Projects, ASD, and from the P&T Architects and Engineers, we have Group Director Ms. Esther Chow, and from WT Partner Hong Kong Limited, we have Mr. Ringo Lui, Director, Quantity Surveyors and Construction Cost Consultants. All right, for those who would like to ask questions, please indicate. Emily Lau, 4 minutes, including questions and answers. Thank you, Chairman. Well, you're proposing a substantial increase, and on the 17th of December, both the headmaster and your colleagues came to explain to us the reasons. We would very much like to support your project because after all it's a school project, and as the paper says, you are having difficulty in the new site, but then there is an increase by over $200 million. Normally for a normal school, it should cost a lot less. So you're actually talking about a very substantial increase. So I've read the paper, and para 6, Chairman, says that the way they have dealt with the situation is that they try to negotiate with the tenderer. In other words, their tenders have met the requirement, and obviously they have an edge over the others. All right, you will give us more details. All right, you conducted tender negotiation with the conforming tenderers whose tenders were clearly more advantageous. So is that a normal practice? Would that be subject to criticism or challenge by others if you try to approach the tenderers on your own? And we have also been reminded by the administration in para 21, that is in the 2012 paper submitted to this paper, they have already made it clear that as far as the school sponsor is concerned, they will be responsible for raw additional funding requirements, whether due to higher than expected tender outturn or other variations. And that is intended to be done, but now the situation has changed, and even if that has been included in the funding paper, now they are coming to us for an additional $200 million. And it's not that the school is not willing to pay for the additional cost. They've said that they would be shouldering the piling cost from $3 million, which has gone up to over $8 million. All right, they are also sharing the cost, but then relatively speaking, they are taking up a smaller share. So how come it's been stated back then that they would be paying for the additional costs, and now you're asking the taxpayers to fund it? And even if they are paying more, they are paying relatively less. And also, to approach the tenderers, is that appropriate, and also is that a standing practice? Under Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. Well, to answer the first question first, you just said that for the $300 million and it's now $600 million, it looks really very costly. But then if you look at the paper we submitted to the FC back in 2012, given the fact that it's a relatively complex site, it's on a slope, and therefore we will have to do it as if it were two sites. And initially we thought that it would cost us some $200 million, but then back then when we asked for funding, we already asked for some $400 million. So comparatively speaking, because of the complex site and the site conditions and so on, when compared to any other school, inevitably it would be somewhat more costly. And referring to para 21 in the paper, in fact, usually, well, we would provide the funding, and then the school itself would engage its own consultant and contractor to do the job. And if it's something to do with its own design, if it would like to add something or modify its design, and as a result, if the cost has gone up, then it would have to be responsible for that, because the administration would only be responsible for a standard school building. But then on this occasion, why are we willing to pay ourselves? That's because it's not them who have asked for this change. But then when the tenders came back, well, for the tenderers who were willing to give us a quotation, actually it has been over and above our original estimated cost. So it's not because the school had caused this or they had asked for additional facilities. That's why that has led to this cost increase. And also on the tendering situation, I'll ask the colleagues to supplement.
Yes, Mr. Lau. As for the negotiation about the tender, actually this is an assistant project, and the school invited contractors to return tenders, and the negotiation was done in accordance with the contract, because when the tender return was received, the price was much higher than expected. So the school hoped that the construction cost can be reduced a bit. So it conducted a tender negotiation with the conforming tenderers, and they eventually achieved a further price reduction. So this is a very common practice. So if the price is considered to be a bit too high, and if you want the price to be reduced, then people would do this. So how come now the government is willing, the school is willing to pay more under paragraph 15? Well, Chairman, because in the original plan, in the future, they may want to add certain works. So that's why the piling works would allow for such a future expansion. So that's why the school is now still responsible for the cost of the piling works, because we only provide them with a standard school building, and if they want something extra, they have to pay for it. Mr. Michael Tian, well, I'm the only one that's in a waiting line. So it seems that everybody would support this, and so I better shut up. But I would really like to say this. I think the most innocent party is the Touching Girls Middle School, because now they have vacated the site and they don't know whether they will get a new school. And also for Yinghua Girls School, for their students, teachers and parents, they are also suffering because most of them live on Hong Kong Island, and now the students will have to go to school on Kowloon side. So if we delay the project more, then the school may have to be relocated to another vacate school premises, and that's undesirable. Now, the government has given us 2 pages in the enclosures. So now you seek an extra funding of 220 million. So where does this 220 million come from? The government hasn't given us a very clear explanation. Now, for the $220 million, there are actually 2 elements. One is 110 million. The other is 75 million. If you add them together, it's 185 million. And there is a delay of 2 years, so it goes up to 200 million. So what are the 110 million and the 75 million? Now, 75 million, well, the government projected that the inflation rate would be 5%, but instead it grew to 9%. So, Chairman, for all these future projects, or for all the government's future projects, if the government's estimate of inflation rate is wrong, then the LegCo cannot do anything. It will have to approve extra funding. But where did the $110 million come from? It was the internal estimation. Well, they think technically that this is a very difficult site, but they haven't thought that whether contractors would love to do this project. So there is this point of reluctance. When the government makes estimates of its projects, it would just think about its difficulties, and if it's difficult, it would add this and that. So originally it was a standard school, but the cost has to be increased to $300 million odd. But if the market is good and if the contractors have a choice, they would not tender for this kind of project. And if they do, they would add a premium. That's where this $110 million come from. So for the whole process, on the side of the government, I think there is a problem. Now, in the future, when they come to the LegCo for funding, shouldn't they do the tendering exercise first, and they will know the exact amount, and then they can come for funding? And now for those $220 million, $110 million that came from this reason is because they made the wrong estimation. And we have seen several projects like this. So I would like to ask the government, in the future, will you take this factor into consideration? And when you consider coming for funding application after you got the tender return? As for the whole project's procedures, we follow the existing system. In the system, there are several advantages. That is, we'll come early to LegCo for funding and support. And that application is made in accordance with the latest information we have. And then we will conduct a tendering exercise. But of course, if the tendering result is very different, then unfortunately we'll have to come back for reapplication. Now, if without the LegCo's approval, we put the contract out to tender, then there will be a lot of problems. So we really have to strike a balance. In the past, I think we seldom came back for extra funding. Well, under certain conditions, actually, we are allowed to call for tender first. Now, in the future, if we see complex projects like this, and it's possible that there are a number of variable factors, then we may use the alternative method. Ms. Helena Wong, and then Mr. Albert Chen. Thank you, Chairman. In the government's paper, paragraph 8, the government says there are 2 reasons. So that's why extra funding would have to be added. So for the extra funding, well, what percentage is the result of a general increase in the cost of building works and for the site-specific factors? As for the extra funding, because there is a general increase in the cost of building works, and that means $75 million. And for the site-specific factors and higher risks, that would take up $100 million. So for that $100 million, it's because that site is on a slope. But when you first make the estimate, you already knew that the site was on a slope. So how come there is this big difference of $100 million? Well, were you too optimistic initially? Now, for our first estimate, we took reference from the construction cost of a standard school building. Of course, we have already looked at the special factors affecting this site. Now, for a standard secondary school, the construction cost was $220 million at that time. And originally, our project estimate was already $432 million. So that has already doubled the standard figure. So you knew that the site was like this already, and you have already increased the construction cost. So was it just a guesstimate? You didn't know that it was situated on a slope? How come the estimate sees a difference of $100 million? Now, we actually made the best estimate with the information available at that time. But when we look at the return of the tender, we see that the price was much higher, and this is due to 2 major reasons. Because the construction market is thriving, and this is a particularly difficult site. So contractors actually have a lot of choices. For such a difficult site, contractors would not prefer it. And they have to add an opportunity cost if they tender for such a site. In the paper, the difficulties about this site are detailedly set out. Now, this site is on a slope. You have to build buildings on a slope. It's not a flat site. And it's very difficult to quantify the difficulties. So that's why there is a big difference now. Now, Chairman, this paper reflects 2 very important issues. I think the government should really look into these 2 issues. Well, maybe initially you didn't know so well about these 2 points, that is increase in the construction cost and the complexity of the site. Well, for the market, it is now so prosperous. I think part of the reason is due to the government's projects. Now, the government has launched so many infrastructural projects, and we do not have enough manpower. So that's why the cost has been skyrocketing. But the government continues to launch new projects. So for the Education Bureau, you have to know that if the construction of a school is too expensive, then you will have to stop it somewhere. I think initially the building of a school will only cost $100 million or so, and if it's $170 million, it's already very expensive. And now this school would cost over $600 million. Then it would become a super expensive school in Hong Kong in terms of construction cost. I'm not saying that it's a luxury school, but the construction cost has broken the Hong Kong record. So for the government, well, will you just follow the market trend? So no matter how expensive it is, you will build it anyway? Do you have strategy to contain the costs at a certain level? It's not that because you have money, then you will just build it at whatever cost. Maybe you should come up with new strategies. You cannot be so rigid when it comes to public works. So you shouldn't just foot any bill. You have to look at the whole issue. Now, is it cost effective? Is it worth the money? Now, if you told me it would cost $600 million, then I would not have approved the project at all. But now we are halfway into the project, and you cannot stop building it now. So you really have to think twice. And the Development Bureau should also be looking at public works direction and the way forward. Now we have the RTHK problem, and here we have this Yinghua Girls' School problem. Sometimes we see a cost increase of even 100%. And we almost panic now when we see all these cost increases. There should be a time that you stop giving us this kind of documents if you do not have new strategies. Otherwise, in the future, we will turn down all your applications if they're like this. The government should review the redevelopment of Wafu Estate. You really should think twice. Look at the construction cost of this project. If you redevelop Wafu Estate, would that really be cost effective? Well, you have to look at our covers. Don't just be misled by this CE and the Secretary for Development.
Next, Emily Lau. Can the Development Bureau respond to that, or can the Education Bureau think about it? Is it time for you to take a second look so that for certain projects it might be time for you to decide to suspend it or put a halt to it? Yes, well, for the specific project, when we have the specific details, I will come back again to give you an overview. All right, can the Development Bureau give us a brief response? You will have to take a second look into these because cost is escalating. All right, members speaking for the first time, Chen Yunhan. Well, just now is Mr. Chen Chiming from the Development Bureau. All right, he has spoken. He's the Deputy Secretary from the Bureau. All right, your question has been answered. Ms. Chen Yunhan, well, we support this project, but then I think we are just reiterating what's been said at the last meeting. All right, some members of the public might say that, all right, Madam Chen, you're actually approving funds to the tune of billions of dollars. Well, on this occasion, they are asking for several hundred million dollars. But then when construction cost is escalating, well, Chairman, you might have to approach Mrs. Carrie Lam again. Maybe we have to do so via the HC. All right, we are in a difficult position because if we do not support it, then it cannot go ahead. But then you will have to look into it again. Yes, we can vote for you, and then people will say, how come it's gone up from $200 million to $400 million and now it's $600 million? So it's a highly transparent system, and therefore we are in a very difficult position. Yes, of course, if I'm allowed the chance, I can ask many questions, but then I think the administration has been put into this very difficult position because the contractors are asking for such hefty prices. So the administration should have been able to act in a more proactive manner. So it's like in the case of RTHK. So you're telling us that the contractors are not willing to put in bids. All right, I've already stated my views last time. I'm just reiterating them. Well, at the meeting held on the 7th of November, some members raised their concerns about the costs and budget coordination and so on, and the views have been passed on to the House Committee Chairman on the 10th of January, to the CS for administration, and then on the 22nd of January she gave a reply, and then on the 24th of January our secretary, that is the PWSC secretary, has already circulated that reply to members, and of course we still have concerns and we will continue to follow up on that. Who will take this question? Would you like to respond? Well, I think we should ask the colleagues seated in the front. They are from the Development Bureau. Yes, Chairman, with regard to overall public works projects, at the meeting held on the 7th of January, we have heard many comments, and this is a situation with regard to the construction sector. With regard to wage increase, there was an increase by 33% during the past 3 years. But then if you look at the tender price during the same period of time, we are talking about an increase by some 60%. You can see how robust the construction sector has been, and that has a lot to do with the higher than expected tender prices. So we'll be coming back again in due course to give you an overview. Next, Emily Lau speaking for the second time. 3 minutes, please. Chairman, I agree that the administration will have to be extremely careful about matters like these. All right, for a school costing $200 million, and now you're asking for $600 million, because back then you told us that one of the reasons is the difficult site condition. All right, you have to do it on this site, and the administration has also allowed it to build on this site. All right, it should normally have cost $200 million, and now it's on a specific location, and it would like to redevelop it, and you say that it's okay. So apparently they are allowed to build it at 2 times or even 3 times the average cost. So what is the standard? And you also said that there was this expected risk, but then it turned out that the contractors are a lot more conservative than you had thought. That's why they are putting these bids, and apparently we are like an ATM machine, so you're just withdrawing money as you like. But then after approaching the contractor, he's willing to cut or he's willing to slice the cost somewhat. Yes, we're willing to talk, but then as the Undersecretary said, when a school says that it would like to redevelop the school building, all right, originally it should have cost so much, but then there are other factors, and apparently you're prepared to accommodate that, but then if it's not enough, then you're prepared to go further. So what happens? And apparently the school says that if they were to go to another site, and then the site would be put up for private residential development, it might cost a lot more, but then they don't want that to happen, and therefore they'd like to redevelop in situ. And apparently the administration is saying that, okay, I support you, and as a result of that, the cost has gone up that substantially. So what is going to happen? So apparently you are accommodating whatever they ask. So what is going to happen? Undersecretary, thank you, Chairman. In considering a proposal from the school to redevelop its building, we will have to consider, well, how old the building is, and also whether or not the building might be smaller than the existing one, and so on and so forth. As far as Yinghua Girls' School is concerned, back in 2010, when we submitted a paper to this council, we already explained the situation. Back then, well, at the present site of Yinghua Girls' School, we're talking about some 3,000, 4,000 square meters. So as far as a standard school building is concerned, it's about 6,000 square meters, and therefore is smaller than the average size. That's why, other than the existing site, we'll be giving them some adjoining site. That's why we have this issue of having two sites together. As to relocating it elsewhere, yes, that's one of the options. We did talk to them about this, but then bearing in mind the fact that the school itself, all along, it's been serving the Central and Western District, and the students have also got this connection with the district. That's why in the end we agree that they should be allowed to redevelop in situ. And as we have stated in the paper, well, for the redevelopment in situ, because of the complexity that I just set out, we have to bear a lot more risks. And we are not giving them additional amount because they have asked for it, but then because of the geographical constraints, it has to be done that way. Well, because of certain reasons, sometimes it might cost somewhat more, but then it's less costly than this one. Well, they might be costing tens of millions of dollars more, but then it doesn't, no two schools would be identical. For example, in 2010, we talk about the average cost of about $200 million. That would be an average school without any site complications. But then on this occasion, because of increase in cost and also different location, well, on the two recent occasions when we came to this council for funding, well, an average school would now cost about $300 million. Emily Lau. All right, you said that you would approach the contractor, and after the negotiation, you managed to suppress the cost further. So is there any room for further downward adjustment? Whatever can be done has been done. I believe that's the case. Chairman, please do not try to answer on their behalf. You are also from the sector. I think this is a standing practice. So are you going to become the Undersecretary? Well, concerning the negotiations, it's not appropriate for me to disclose the details. But then what I can say here is, in fact, the negotiation has taken us several rounds before we managed to get them to cut down the cost somewhat. So you will have to work harder because the FC is very concerned about this. Should you try a bit harder? Chairman, will try our best. We will see what we can do after the meeting. All right. Are there any further questions? If not, then I'll put this to the vote. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. No objection. All right. I think members participating in the vote are in favor of the vote, and the project is approved. All right, for the two projects that have been scrutinized today, one has been rejected and one has been supported. And on the 21st of February at the FC meeting, the projects will be submitted to the FC for approval. So on the two items, I'd like to ask members if they'd like to single these projects out for separate voting. No such request. All right. This is the last meeting before the Chinese New Year, and I'd like to wish you a very happy New Year and a very prosperous year and a healthy year ahead. Thank you.